Todd Shapiro Show. Canada Laughs. SiriusXM 168.
Jordan Sinclair over at Canopy Growth. Quickly, man, what is going? I mean, every day there's new news. There's the weed news. We're getting closer to legalization. It's sort of a very repetitive theme for me to ask these questions, but it's so exciting, isn't it?
It is, and I'm in it on a daily basis, and it's almost hard to keep up because Canada is just a part of the story now, but the rest of the world, I think, is really starting to catch up. So when we're keeping our ear to the ground to make sure that we're up to speed on everything going on in Canada, because this is home and this is where we think, legalization is going to happen first. And obviously that's awesome for our business, but we're branching out everywhere, right? So we're thinking about what the process looks like in Germany, where they've just had, a bit of a delay in their tender process. But then you look at Australia, and they've got, a report that just came out from one of the states down there that said they're going to think about legalizing recreational sales themselves. And New Zealand is thinking about a referendum on legalization. So it's kind of cool to think back a couple of years ago and reflect on, where Canada was at this sort of like really leadership progressive position, and then how other countries followed suit, right? Like it just took one. It's kind of like that first guy ran the 4-minute mile, and then all over the world, everybody realized that they could do it too. It's just once one person gets past the barrier, everybody else is like, oh, right, we can do this too. So it's cool. It's sometimes there's delays, sometimes there's things that move really quickly, but it just feels like it's a big wave now internationally.
Well, and what's also really neat, just being Canadian, is that in the past it always felt like Canadians were following other trends or other sort of situations, and now it doesn't feel that way with anything within Canada. We've kind of created a really wonderful identity. There's so many proud Canadians now. There used to be the American dream, and now I think it's become the Canadian dream as we see what's going on south of the border with all the just chaos over there.
Yeah.
And here now being the pioneers of the legalization of marijuana. The one thing, though, I will say interesting, Jordan, that's interesting to me is the fact that I kind of heard you say, we think that it will be legalized still. And is that still a bit of a concern? I know the senators were sort of maybe talking about delaying it. It passed a recent vote in the Senate, but the media might have made it a little more fearful that might not have passed. Where do you think we truly stand with it?
I think we're rock solid. Yeah, maybe I was a bit too loose with the tongue there, but I actually think that we are rock solid. Last week we had a bit of, I would say, a media circus around some delays that senators were talking about. But at the end of the day, I think that once the bill got to the Senate, there's a number of conservative senators who are there who are going to do what they can. Politics is theater. Politics is a contact sport. So they did what they could to create this sense of a delay or a possibility of a delay. And I think everybody just kind of bit onto that story hook, line, and sinker. But the vote wasn't even close. I was joking with our CEO. It was, I think it was 44-29. Like that's not even really all that close in football. And in politics, it's a landslide. So
very well said.
So there's there was a lot of noise about the potential for a delay, but I think it was more just political theater.
Well, the other thing I think it was in my case is what I saw, and I'm sort of media in a way, is that I saw media just trying to create headlines, trying to get people to hit on their websites or buy their newspapers and watch their news reports, and I felt like it was actually misrepresented.
Yeah, well, not everybody can rely on the vodka and the weed and the beer sponsors, right? So they got to drive the click somehow. So they're
yeah. Tell me something. I have a question.
Martha Chavez, by the way, a very funny, legendary Canadian comic here in the country. Meet Jordan Sinclair. Go ahead, Martha.
Hi, Jordan.
Hey.
Jordan, tell me something. When you do the oil, do you have to eat after so it gets activated? Or is in my head? Because usually, like sometimes I do oil and nothing happened. Then I go with grandmother. I got to have a salad and woo, immediately I get hit by the pot. Yeah.
Yeah, we hear a lot of people kind of asking that question. I think it does have a lot to do with just what you've eaten that day. If you're on an empty stomach, you might feel the effects a little bit more than if you had an incredible amount of liquid and fatty foods that day. So yeah, I mean, I guess the most important thing on that is just you kind of listen to your body and take it slow. And if it starts to feel like you've had a bunch, there's nothing that time can't solve. You just sort of got to find a comfy spot and get through her.
Nobody has ever died of an overdose. Like you can get a diabetic coma, that I can grant you, because if you stuff yourself with sweets after you smoke, There
you go.
But tell me something. What do you do to cut the appetite?
To curb the appetite?
When you do the pot, like, do you have any strand available? Are they planning to create a strand that so doesn't give you the munchies that much?
Oh, geez, I wouldn't say we have any specific plans. I think
you should.
It's funny.
This is a great revolutionary idea, Jordan Sinclair.
Yeah, this is good. So it's funny though. We sent out this big questionnaire to all of our customers a few months ago to ask them, what do you do after you medicate? And the funny thing is, the number one activity that people did was go outside. So that it was such a funny thing for us, because we were like, what is it? Why is that? And we dug a little bit deeper, and it's because so many people that are using cannabis are using it because they've got pain or mobility issues. And once they're feeling better, the first thing they want to do is go outside and just get their body moving. So that was awesome news for us.
Go outside to I'm not just saying, like, I legitimately never really had that effect when it comes to marijuana. With that being said, I'm also, predominantly on CBDs as that's what I'm doing now. And I don't know if you heard, Jordan, but the reason why I'm doing it from my home today, the show, and we've been doing it for the last sort of 8 or 9 days, is I think maybe having this little one at home and throwing him around a little bit and carrying him, putting him in the car and stuff. My back just gave out on me. It was crazy, and I hadn't had back pain in about a decade. And it was really nice. It was really nice to know that I had some CBD oil, and it really helped me get through it. And I took any other sort of medical or anti-inflammatory or stuff, nothing at all. And I'm feeling, one day, I shouldn't lie, actually. One day I think I took an Aleve, like a naproxen, but even then I rarely ever have used that types of medication. And I felt good. And like, here I am 9-10 days later, I'm sitting up straight. I actually drove today for the first time. And
sitting on a stool.
I'm sitting on a stool.
No support.
And it really did help me. Like, it's really nice to be able to speak about these things through a very honest experience. And when you say people go outside, that makes a lot of sense to me, because I was crammed up at home. I was driving everyone crazy. I was I was milking it a little bit too, because I was like asking for things. Hired my own butler, but no. But it was it's nice to actually go, God, I never really want the pain, but to have it and then know it is effective, that to me was not only because I was just taking it for anxiety before, and then it really helped there too. So thank you. It's great.
Man, it's funny. Thank Stephen Harper. He's the one that made all these great cannabis laws that we've got in Canada. So
Harper,
ironic. Yeah.
Harper is the one who wanted it legalized. Lego hair.
He's the one that created the whole system that we've got today in Canada. It's wild, it's a big part of his legacy. So I think
Harper,
when people think back on it, it's one of those funny things.
Still my beating head. I thought that it was Justin. I thought that Justin was gonna just marijuana for everybody because he wants to gain popularity again.
Well, you lead me into a good question here, Jordan, because obviously there's the more of the Ontario race here, and Doug Ford. Whatever politics you have, I know where Martha's leanings are, but it could if it passes legally on a federal level, can an Ontario premier who is conservative, that were to happen, could they ever kind of help? Not help. Could they ever hurt? Could they ever hurt the law, the federal law?
So there was a lot of talk about this about a calendar year ago. And I guess the answer is they sort of can, but they couldn't completely veto it. So what would happen if that were to arise and there was a situation where one province just said, no, we're not having it, the e-commerce system that we've already got for medical patients would sort of fill that gap. So people would still be able to order online, and it would get delivered to their door, and the province wouldn't be able to block that. So they might be able to stop some sort of retail framework, but the e-com would still exist.
Are there any fears that any provinces would still take that route, or are we kind of even with this potential of a very close race in June? I mean, is that something that's come up as concerns within your company and talked about it?
I think everyone runs the math, and money just talks. The tax revenue, the potential tax revenue that all the provinces are going to get, I think was the last kicker. There's been no holdouts. We've announced 5 distribution deals across the country, and only 5 provinces have announced their plans. So I don't think that there's going to be anything that's overly obstructionist. I just, to me, it's remarkable how one person led the way. So Justin Trudeau, through his campaign, was on regulation and legalization of cannabis, and everyone else sort of just followed suit. So we'll see the odd time of politics coming into play as theater, but I think in function in the real world, I think we're ready. I think as a society, we've spent the last couple of years sort of talking through all of this, and there's still some stakeholders that are on the other side of the fence. But I'd say by and large, Canada's ready for this, and now we just got to pick a day.
We're more than ready, and there would be like an uprising, a revolution, if for some reason if it got changed. And we're more than ready, and also the stigma from, I would say, 40 and under at least is completely wiped away. There's no one thinks the way that I would, and I'm generalizing here, but a lot of older folks perhaps, and older folks in politics, and to me that is such a positive sign. And again, back to what we're doing here in Canada as being leaders, it will also help, in my mind anyway, tourism and people coming here, and for if there ever was a Doug Ford leading this province where we broadcast from, I think about Toronto's the biggest city, the most desired city to visit in this country. Why would he ever want to sort of mess with that, with people coming here and more people coming here? Because then you think about business thriving and tax dollars
Colorado,
coming in. Colorado, California.
How about that? I mean, big pharma. How aren't you afraid that they may try to interfere because of cannabis being better than anything that they produce?
It's a great question.
Yeah, I'd say I don't want to come off as sounding cocky at all, but I'd say that there's probably as many reasons for them to be afraid of us than there are for reasons for us to be afraid of them. Like even Todd was saying earlier, he didn't take any other drugs because CBD was doing it for him. So the substitution effect has the potential to be a major disruptor. So I would say that it's on us to be nimble and make sure that we're not getting out lobbied or slagged with bad PR from any stakeholder that might be kind of wary of their bottom line. But no, I think that we're in a good position. Cannabis is something that we don't fully understand yet from a scientific perspective and a clinical trial perspective, but all that work is underway. And all of that will just help to chip away at the last little remaining pieces of stigma that are left over from prohibition.
Jordan, I guess my last question before you go, and I hope you get to enjoy it with your family in a very long weekend, is can CBD oil help me get rid of the Paw Patrol theme song that continually runs through my brain? Is there any way to block that out somehow?
Oh, God, I don't know. Why would you want to?
Paw Patrol, don't get me started.
I met some of the actors of Paw Patrol. I gave them an award.
Oh, you know, we couldn't even afford tickets to it. It was so expensive to go to that thing. Jordan, did you go with your kids?
No, we had. I entered into a draw to go to the French Paw Patrol on Ice in Ottawa, but we didn't win. So no, we'll have to wait until next year.
That is the most brilliant marketing they've ever done for everything. I've never seen anything quite like it. The tickets are like $200. I'm like, Sawyer's not even going to remember this. Anyway, that's a constant in your household too?
Constant. I would say it's that and Mickey Mouse and man, oh man, there's a handful, and I'm like, you've already seen this episode. I know the words to this episode. How is this still entertaining? But God bless them. They do love it.
At least you don't have Barney the dinosaur. That was awful.
That was awful.
I love you. You love me.
You know what? Thank God. You're right.
Thank God. I wanted to ask you something else very quickly. What do you think about shatter?
Oh, I think about it.
What I don't know what that is.
Shatter is the one that is kind of like ice thing that you smoke in a vaporizer.
Oh, I never. Okay, I thought it was another cartoon. I'm like, who's that?
No. But I mean, it is cooked. So I don't know if it, no, my question is, are you going to produce that too? Or
So I think like that the way to think about every form of cannabis is that if the regulated producers don't get to produce it, the black market will continue to. And I would say that in general, you can trust a regulated market more than you can trust an unregulated one. So I think someday we might produce it. It's a concentrated form of cannabis, very highly concentrated form. The pros are that you're inhaling far less matter, so less smoke. And then the cons are that it's so concentrated that it's easy to take too much and wind up with what we would call an adverse event and maybe even wind up in the hospital. So there's a balancing act.
You have to not plan nothing for that day.
Martha. It's nonstop. It's nonstop Paw Patrol.
It's like you have to stay home. Like if you do Saturday and you don't know.
Well,
you
that sounds.
to stay home.
That's not for me, to be honest, because I have too much to do. Jordan, thank you so much for your time, always from Canopy Growth, and we're always so glad that you join us and educate us and help continue the conversation and ending the stigma as we head towards legalization. I hope you do have a wonderful long weekend with the fam.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter to you and your family, both you guys. So thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, or just a long weekend and not working. Yeah, that's all I care about. Cheers, my man.
The Todd Shapiro Show, Canada Laughs, SiriusXM 168.